miracles, one of teaching again. And how's the teaching again? Because he talks about faith, he talks about fasting, and he talks about prayer. Prayer, faith, and fasting. What is necessary? Here we are in the 4th week of Lent, and we have again a reminder that we are still fasting and to keep up the faith, keep the strength. The story goes that again this man, and it says again, falls down at the feet of Jesus. He has a boy, an epileptic boy, the boy that falls down and foams at the mouth, epilepsy. That was the disease, uncurable and still not cured. It's pretty much curable, but contained to some degree. Even today, 2,000 years later, we still have it. And this man was desperate, and he falls down before the feet of Christ. Not that he knew who he was. All he knew was that he was performing all these miracles. He was doing all the things that were impossible. And then he had a son, and he said, I'll go to my son. But what happened? Jesus, again, the gospel says, send them out 2 by 2 to go and heal the people. And that's what they did. He gave them the apostles to heal before the resurrection of Christ. And they were going and healing. And this man, he went to the disciples, and they could not heal this boy. They could not heal the boy. Why? Because they asked him at the beginning, how come we cannot heal him? Because the Father said, I went to your disciples, they cannot heal him, so I'm coming to you and pleading to you to heal my son. Of which Jesus does, of course. He does, he heals the son. And the disciples say, why can we not heal him? You gave us this authority, not this. Not this. And what he's really telling him is that you are not going out and having me in mind necessarily. He said, because this takes prayer and fasting. What does prayer and fasting mean? That means we are in communication with God. Their minds were someplace else. And they were not able to heal the paralytic boy. Not the paralytic, the epileptic boy. They were not able to heal him. Because Christ was not in their mind when they were doing it. And it said, you have to be having Christ in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, in everything that you do. Christ first. And how many times have we asked for miracles? Somebody that we love goes into the hospital. We're not sure. And we pray. Are we really praying to God? I think yes, because we're in sorrow and we're suffering. But where was he before? I don't know how that works. Only God knows how that works. Well, I do know that if you have Christ in your heart, he said he takes care of us, no matter what. No matter what happens, he takes care of us. He understands our suffering. He understands our pains. He understands all of it. And here we are in the 4th period of Lent, of which should make us even closer to God. By the prayer and fasting we do. The prayer and fasting that we do. And he asks this man, do you believe? And the man says, yes, I believe, but, he says, help my unbelief. I believe that you can do it, but it's impossible. It's hard to believe that. That was good enough for Christ. Then let your son be cured. Let the demon come out of him. Because that's what they said, a demon was in him. And he had epilepsy. Not everybody that has epilepsy has a demon. But in this case, he had a demon in him. And the demon left him. Why and how? Because Christ is the one. He's the giver of life. He's the one that does the miracles. We don't. Only God does. But you have to have him in your mind, in your soul, and in your heart. With all your might. And who knows? Who knows? When you're in the day of sorrow and suffering, and you pray, and you have that in your heart, that God will not grant you the gift of healing. God knows that. God knows that. How wonderful that would be. How wonderful that would be. And you'd have to, of course, give the credit to Christ. How many times in the hospital, I go all the time, we go to the hospital, people they go to the hospital, we pray for them, and some of them say, they get better, and they say, I would have got better anyway. Pray over them, but don't give God the credit for getting better, but I would have got better anyway. What a disgrace. What a disgrace, discarding God. Discarding God even of our lives. It's a disgrace. It really is. And that comes from some believers too, by the way. In other words, keep Christ in your heart. There's where we are, 4th week of Lent. This is the time for again, contemplation, consideration of the Lord, being deeper in our hearts and in our lives. So, I believe, I think all of us can say that, I believe, and maybe some of us have some doubt, but help my unbelief, which is fine. You can question it, but as long as you believe that Christ is there and